Right? Are we ready to actually animate reality and activate reality with this next step of the source code? Okay, so here we go. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you and to be in this with you and to go deep. Now we're going to go just as deep as we can go. Okay, let's take off. So we're going to start today with a very kind of unusual start. Okay, and the start is going to be, we're going to see a clip. It's about 3.5 minutes. I'm going to ask everyone to watch it carefully. And it's a clip of Barack Obama, okay? And it's Barack Obama giving a commencement speech on Zoom. We're only going to see, I don't know, 3 minutes of it, something like that. How many minutes are we going to see, Suzette or Shahat? Something like that, 3.5 minutes. And I want you to listen carefully because it's wildly important. It's important both what Barack said and what Barack didn't say. Right? What he said and what's missing. And you can't actually understand conspiracy theory, right? It's a little over 3 minutes a shot. You can't actually understand conspiracy theory without understanding what Barack Obama is saying here and what he's not saying, what's important here and what's missing, right? And none of this is about a critique of Barack Obama as a person, right? Blessings to Barack Obama, who's just done, so many beautiful things on so many levels. Right, and has gotten so much support. So I want to bless all the beauty that he's done, right? But this is not about Democratic. It's not about the best of the Republican Party, not the hijacked version of it that we tragically see today, right? And it's not about Barack Obama being right or wrong. Barack Obama is a complex figure, like all people are. So it's not about Barack. And Barack, I totally appreciate you signing up and letting us use your commencement speech, right? So this is total mad love, brother. Okay, this is both what you said, but what's missing. Because Barack Obama in this little talk incarnates, in a certain sense, what we might call the best of the liberal world, like the best of Western enlightenment. And you see both its strength in Barack Obama, and you see its enormous weakness. So take us inside. Barack Obama, Barack, thank you, brother, and Mr. President, and thank you, and with huge honor for your service and huge honor for everything you've done. So we're going to critique you a little bit today, and I know as part of the values of Western enlightenment that you could not be more delighted. So take us inside. Barack Obama, coming at you. Thanks for coming.
So if the world's going to get better, it's going to be up to you. That realization may be kind of intimidating, but I hope it's also inspiring. With all the challenges this country faces right now, nobody can tell you, no, you're too young to understand, or this is how it's always been done. Because with so much uncertainty, with everything suddenly up for grabs, this is your generation's world to shape. If I'm one of the old guys, I won't tell you what to do with this power that rests in your hands, but I'll leave you with 3 quick pieces of advice. First, don't be afraid. America's gone through tough times before. Slavery, civil war, famine, disease, the Great Depression, and 9/11. And each time, we came out stronger, usually because a new generation, young people like you, learned from past mistakes and figured out how to make things better. Second, do what you think is right. Doing what feels good, what's convenient, what's easy, that's how little kids think. Unfortunately, a lot of so-called grown-ups, including some with fancy titles and important jobs, still think that way, which is why things are so screwed up. I hope that instead you decide to ground yourself in values that last, like honesty, hard work, responsibility, fairness, generosity, respect for others. You won't get it right every time. You'll make mistakes, like we all do. But if you listen to the truth that's inside yourself, even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, people will notice. They'll gravitate towards you. And you'll be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And finally, build a community. No one does big things by themselves. Right now, when people are scared, it's easy to be cynical and say, let me just look out for myself, or my family, or people who look or think or pray like me. But if we're going to get through these difficult times, if we're going to create a world where everybody has opportunity to find a job and afford college, if we're going to save the environment and defeat future pandemics, then we're going to have to do it together. So be alive to one another's struggles. Stand up for one another's rights. Leave behind all the old ways of thinking that divide us. Sexism, racial prejudice, status, greed, and set the world on a different path. When you need help, Michelle and I have made it the mission of our foundation to give young people like you the skills and support to lead in your own communities and to connect you with other young leaders around the country and around the globe. But the truth is, you don't need us to tell you what to do, because in so many ways, you've already started to lead. Congratulations, class of 2020. Keep making us proud.
Hey, NBC News viewers.
There we go. Okay. So obviously, everyone catch that? Right? Obviously, right? There's a lot of beauty there. Right? So yay Barack, right? So everyone gets to give him a big hand. Okay. Like total fantastic. Now let's be in a democracy and let's take this the next step. Okay. So I'm going to put Barack aside for a second, President Obama, right? Big hand Barack. And let's now go to step 4 of conspiracy theory, and we're going to come back to Barack, right, in a couple of minutes, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to deepen what we talked about at the end of last week. We're going to deepen what we talked about in Dharma Circle. So we're going to take off right now. Okay, so this is the start. It starts right here. We just saw a clip of Barack Obama. And Barack Obama is talking about what the young generation, it's a commencement speech to high school students. And it's beautiful, and Obama's beautiful in all the ways that he is. But what's troubling about it? If you listen carefully, you notice that Obama says time and again, there is nothing that we actually have to give you. We don't have a transmission of values that are actually larger than they work, they last, right? We're the old people, right? We screwed it up. I'm the old guy. There's not a sense of, here are the shared principles backed by the universe that actually reflect timeless truths, right? Here's a sense of unique self. I don't feel, right? Feeling good, right, is equated, feeling good's equated with what's convenient and what's easy. Don't do what feels good, do what you think is right. So there's this split between thinking and feeling. Feeling is superficial, thinking is good, right? There's a sense of, on the one hand, you should listen to what's inside yourself because that's going to work. People are going to notice, they're going to gravitate towards you. Right, so it works. These are values that last, right? They're pragmatically, right, effective, but there's not a sense, and I want you to stay with me really closely, of the ultimate truth, right, of a shared tradition that I, Barack, as an elder, have to transmit to you, right? Actually, I'm not just the older guy. I'm not just part of the screw up, right? I actually, right, want to be giving you a transmission. I want to be actually an elder, and I want to share with you that actually there were great people who came before you, and they had a shared sense of value. And those values are rooted in ultimate realities. And that actually love is part of the story, and love is real, but it's a real value of cosmos, right? And these values of honesty and hard work and responsibility, it's not just that they last and that people are going to notice you and gravitate towards you. It's actually, this is the structure of cosmos, right? That you're actually part of a larger story. And it's now your turn at this key point, right? Of course, to step into your leadership, and it's your turn to go the next step. And it's your turn to participate in the evolution of love that's been going on generation to generation. Because otherwise, what's the experience you have, right, as a young person? Right? Basically, all the previous generations aren't actually transmitting to me wisdom. I'm not actually receiving the perennial philosophy, which is the greatest shared truths known throughout the generations. I'm not, right, receiving the 15 common sense sacred axioms that a person actually lives by because they're actually reflective of a deeper and wider ultimate truth. I'm not participating in the evolution of love. I don't know that love is real. Right? You get that? And in other words, the liberal world thought that it could do away with the great mythic story of reality that we're participating in, right? It could do away with, it could just rely on the kind of innate sense that there's the good, the true, and the beautiful. But actually, postmodernity deconstructed the good, the true, and the beautiful. That actually, right, we've got to show a young person that there's a truth that lives within you at a time when in the Oxford Dictionary, the word of the year in 2016 is post-truth, right? Post-truth becomes the word of the year. So if post-truth is the word of the year, how can, right, a high school graduate actually find the truth that lives within them? If there's no sense of self, right? I had the privilege of doing some very active involvement with one of the best liberal private schools in America, a high school. The kids from the, leading edge families, with the best faculty, right? Literally the bastion of liberal America. And I will tell you that those kids, right, had no idea, right, what the good, the true, and the beautiful were. As a matter of fact, they said to me, we don't even think we have a self. According to the science that we seem to be understanding, we're just a random collection of atoms and molecules. And there's actually nothing that we're ever obligated to do, because there can't be an obligation, because everything's purely subjective. And I follow the truth that lives in me, right, wherever it takes me, but no one can actually demand any truth from me, because that's actually wrong. And so I asked the entire, right, a huge part of the student body, not the entire student body. Right? I said, okay, Mother Teresa and Hitler. Right? Mother Teresa and Hitler, that's a pretty obvious distinction. Who was right and who was wrong? And I will tell you that I would say more than 2/3 of this leading interested group of the student body said you can't say objectively that one was more right than the other, because there's not a shared pool of truth. Right? There's not a shared set of values that actually obligate us. Right? There's not a demand for a nobility that's beyond my own subjective truth. Right? There's not a transmission of perennial values that have been accessed by the most subtle and speculative minds. There's not a story of reality conspiring, right, to ever greater levels of love, to ever greater levels of truth, ever greater levels of beauty, ever greater levels of goodness. And actually, a teacher in that school who had been there for 40 years said to me, right after this class, she said, when I came to this school, again, I won't name the school, the assumption was the good, the true, and the beautiful, the great triad of Plato. Now neither the faculty nor the kids have any genuine access to that innate value. They don't even know how to formulate it. That lives in cosmos, right? That anything that's an innate value is considered dogmatic, right? You have to actually, and the way the school teaches is, right? The way the school teaches is they actually facilitate in the school. They're little classrooms of 14, 15 people. And then students are asked, what do you think? What do you think? So a text is read and students are asked, well, what do you think? And what do you think? And what do you think? So instead of giving them any kind of transmission of actually, there's a set of certainties that we know. And I sat and I met with the faculty and I said to the faculty, right, you guys are teaching your uncertainty, right? Wow. Do you have any certainties? And they said, of course we have certainties, but we can't teach them because that would be dogmatic. So I literally went around the room, the best teachers at this best school, and none of them were transmitting any certainties of value, any certainties of goodness, of truth, of beauty, of the reality of love. Instead, they were facilitating the students, and everything the students said, that's really good. Oh, that's really good. Oh, that's fantastic. And I sat in a lot of classes. It was a complete collapse of education. Did you get that? So that's a very big deal. Now, President Obama is a beautiful expression of the old world of liberalism, but that's not going to take us home. The old world of liberalism has actually collapsed on itself because it's actually not standing for a vision in which there's noble obligation beyond yourself, in which you're called by cosmos to an intrinsic responsibility that's actually needed by all that is, where you can't actually experience reality saying to you, right, you're chosen, you're recognized, right, you're desired, you're literally needed by all that is, right? At that school where I taught, which reflects the best of these values expressed by President Obama, right, the overwhelming majority of the students didn't have a sense of self. Right? Even a separate sense of a cohesive, separate self was hard. They experienced themselves in these kind of dogmatic, materialist, scientific terms. They certainly didn't have a sense of true self, of dropping beneath separate self into the infinite field of consciousness. They fit all of themselves on a postage stamp, the most narrow, desiccated version of themselves. Right? To actually experience that I'm one with the field of consciousness, that I'm one with the larger field of outrageous love, and then to go from true self to unique self, right? That I'm actually an irreducibly unique expression of the love, beauty, and love intelligence of all that is, that lives in me, as me, and through me, that never was, is, or will be ever again other than through me. And as such, I have a unique perspective and I have a unique quality of intimacy that together comes together to foster my unique gift. And my unique gift is needed in my unique circle of intimacy and influence. And I join hands with other unique selves around the world to give that gift. And that is the very purpose of my life. That is the very joy of my life that was intended by all that is. And that my life's purpose participates in the larger purpose of cosmos. And the cosmos actually is a story, means there's a plot line, right? It has direction. Right? You get that? All of that was missing. So instead, right, and I apologize, and with great honor, President Obama, instead we got liberal plabum. And liberal plabum, right, doesn't cut it. Right? Now, is what Barack Obama said true? Of course it's true. Is he elegant and beautiful? Yes, he's also a great dancer. Right? He's a great guy. Hot damn. Right? I'll spend a week with Barack Obama on an island. Sure. But that's not the point. Right? Right? The point is the generations. The point is there's a rupture in the generations. I want to give you an idea enunciated by a sociologist named Will Herberg in the 1950s. He called it cut flower ethics. And cut flower ethics means you have a rose, and the rose is rooted, right, in the earth and the soil and the water. Then you cut the rose from the soil. So in the first generation, right, rose looks good, right? It's cut from the earth, but it's still second generation, rose is a little bit, right, a little bit. Third generation, fourth generation, the rose is dead. Right, you get that? Now, we've cut the values of the good, the true, and the beautiful from their larger mooring in the intrinsic and inherent value of cosmos itself. So Krista asks, is there objective truth? Of course there's objective truth. And objective truth and subjective truth merge. They're the same, right? And that's my deepest inner subjectivity, right, is the larger field of shared truth. Now, there are unique expressions of that truth. So every religion can be a unique self in the unique self symphony. But there's a larger story. That which unites us is far greater than that which divides us, right? So here's an objective truth. Love is real. And I experience that objective truth in my own subjective interior. And the entire split between objective and subjective disappears. Of course it does. Are the good, the true, and the beautiful objective truths, right, that live in every subject? Of course they are. Now, does that mean that they're frozen in a particular generation? Does that mean that they don't evolve? Of course they evolve. Love is real, and we participate in the evolution of love. The good is real, and we participate in the evolution of the good. But knowing, right, beauty is real, and we participate in the evolution of beauty. Right? Truth is real, and we participate in wider and deeper truths. Right? So the great traditions tried to freeze frame truth, to objectify it, to divorce it from the subject, and to say that we own the truth and no one else does, and ours is better than everyone else's. So we rebelled against that. That was a good rebellion, and that birthed the liberal world. But then we lost touch, cut flower ethics. We lost touch with the larger field of the good, the true, and the beautiful. And the good, the true, and the beautiful is an ontological reality, right? The cosmos, right, is replete with value, and it's inherent and intrinsic value. And it goes all the way down to quarks and atoms and molecules, right, that are allured together to form larger wholes. And the cosmos has direction, has telos. Now, what does this have to do with conspiracy theories? You might want to know. Hello, wasn't this supposed to be part 4 conspiracy theories? So I want to tell you something wild. And it's so self-evidently true, but we completely miss it. So let's dive into conspiracy theories. Why are conspiracy theories so prevalent, in this particular moment in time? And I want to make a couple of distinctions again so we can be accurate and precise. Okay? So when I say conspiracy theories, let me distinguish what I mean. because there's two different kinds of conspiracy theories. There are what I might call regressive conspiracy theories and progressive conspiracy theories. That's a new word. Okay, there's regressive conspiracy theories and progressive conspiracy theories. There are truth-telling conspiracy theories, which speak truth to power, and there are dogmatic conspiracy theories, right, that are actually creating new dogma. Okay, so let's make that distinction, but let's use the general term regressive, right? Conspiracy theories, they're regressing to kind of a pre-modern devil vision of the world. And there's progressive conspiracy theories, or you might even call them evolutionary conspiracy theories, which are trying to find their way to the truth. Okay, that's one. Okay, two, I'm going to make a second distinction. If you don't have these distinctions, we're just lost. There are local conspiracy theories, right? And by local, I mean they're addressing a local issue. So did the virus, right, come from, let me see if I can find something I want to share with you, right? Did the virus, right, come from a lab in Wuhan, China, right, that was funded, right, in part by the United States, doing appropriate, although controversial, collaborative research with American labs in North Carolina? That's a local conspiracy question, right? Meaning, were there forces that were coming together, right, to create possible cures? That's what they were doing, to create vaccines, right? And that one of those animals that was infected intentionally through very intense, right, direct intentional work that we did, right, did that animal somehow find its way, right, to the wet market, right, and did that infection therefore spread in that way? So there's an enormous amount of really good information that points in that direction. We're not 1,000% sure. There's uncertainty, but actually to try and locate and understand what happened, that's a local conspiracy theory. Does everyone get that? That's a legitimate data issue. You got to check facts. You got to understand what's happening, right? Is Anthony Fauci, right, involved in, right, just through the last 25 years in, kind of profiting from vaccines? Well, that might be true. Is that necessarily negative? Maybe not. Maybe that's legitimate, right? Maybe it's not. We don't know. But does the public in a democracy deserve to know, right, actually what's actually happening? And why did we invest millions of dollars in a P4 lab, right? And did it escape inadvertently or inadvertently? Those are fair, legitimate questions. And when you start taking off videos, right, Christina Kincaid sent me a video, like, dealing with Dr. Fauci's, right, particular history in this area, and you couldn't find it. It was taken off YouTube. Now Dr. Fauci can respond and he can debunk it. And he may well be right. We've got to investigate the issue like we investigate everything, right? Checking facts and checking data. But you're not allowed to have the conversation. That's problematic, okay? So there are local, I'm going to call those the local conspiracy theories, which, right, we have to check what's their agenda. Is their agenda legitimate fact-finding, or do they have a covert agenda? So we got to check the information ecology. And whenever there's someone's, right, looking and investigating, are they investigating to find the truth? Or are they investigating for some complete other reason, for a set of agendas that are actually hidden? Those are fair questions. Okay, great. Now, it's also fair, right, to, check into, for example, right, all of the complex sets of operations, right, that are going on, right, in the Trump administration, right? So you can't actually dismiss the Robert Mueller, right, investigation, right, as a witch hunt. He's actually asking legitimate questions, which actually need to be asked. That's also a local conspiracy theory, meaning we're looking at a local set of facts and trying to understand what really happened. But that's a legitimate, right? Now you can claim that that has hidden agendas. Okay, so we got to look at that issue, but it's a legitimate, you can't dismiss that, right? You get both sides. Those are legitimate local conspiracy theories. That's not what we're talking about. That's not the conversation that's central here. The central conversation here is, and let me perhaps say just one more thing, just to give you an example. There is a film that went around YouTube, a 26-minute film called Plandemic. Plandemic was made by Mickey Willis. I don't know Mickey well. We've, I think, spoken once on the phone, exchanged a couple of emails, but I don't know him well. Right? He's doing good work in general in the world. It was with a particular virologist. It was a controversial virologist. Went for 26 minutes. If you watch it, it's very clear, right? And if you do some research, that they're making a sincere attempt, right, to try and bring forth some very, very real and very troubling issues. Now, that's a legitimate conversation. You can challenge that conversation. You don't have to accept Plandemic on face value. But I just want you to check for a second. This is the New York Times, right, commenting on Plandemic, right? I want you to just listen carefully. This is the New York Times commenting on Plandemic, right? An article by Shira Ovid, or Ovid. I apologize, Shira, if I pronounce your name wrong. Here's how she comments on Plandemic. Sometimes the online cesspool makes me want to scream my head off. Millions of people have watched an online video that recycled discredited health conspiracies into a slick documentary. The success of the video, a documentary called Plandemic, right? It's pushing a baseless conspiracy, using online savvy. It's unleashing misinformation goulash. The internet companies couldn't prevent its spread. It's a blockbuster movie campaign, right? It's garbage peddling showmen, right? It's garbage peddling snowmen, right? Showmen by a fringe group of people. Now, let me ask you a question. Is that a respectful review of Plandemic? It's not, right? What it is, it's a demonization of Plandemic. Beware for demonizations, right? In other words, when the New York Times, which is the official organ, right, of, New York Times, Washington Post, of the liberal community, says that Plandemic, right, made by, and this is important, made by Mickey Willis. He's a credible, good, decent human being. He's definitely not a right-wing Trump troll. He's a complete liberal, right? I know that about Mickey, right? He's a kind of profound liberal, right? He's not a garbage peddling showman. Right? That's not true, okay? So you got to be careful here, right? So that's the first kind of conspiracy theory, what I'm calling a local conspiracy theory, when it's dismissed, right? When Christina sends me, right, a video and it's taken off YouTube, right? When the purveyors, right, of, right, possibly legitimate issues are not allowed hearing, and they're called garbage peddling showmen by the New York Times, right, in an official New York Times tech column, that's problematic, right? That means that something's not right here, okay? So that's one form of conspiracy that we got to look at. That's not our topic today, okay? That's not our topic today. Our topic is the second kind of conspiracy theory, because the second one is actually, as and perhaps even far more important. And the second kind of conspiracy theory is what I would call a global conspiracy theory. It's not local, it's a global conspiracy theory. And it's talking not about a local set of issues, it's talking about the nature of what's going on, what's the big picture in reality, what's happening behind the scenes, not in a particular set of issues. You get that? It's not about Dr. Fauci, the virus, the source of the virus, right? Corruption, right, in the Trump administration, right, which is legitimate, influenced by Russia and the elections. Those are all legitimate issues. They can't be dismissed, for example, by President Trump as a witch hunt. That's not fair. That's actually wrong, right? And when the press is doing its legitimate job, right? Okay, wow. So we got to look at now. So those are legitimate, but now we got to look at, okay, right, broader, right, world conspiracy theories, right? Not local conspiracy theories, but global conspiracy theories. Now, global conspiracy theories, right, of the kind told, let's say, by David Icke. There's one example of those kind. Right? There's another form that are told by QAnon, right? That's very, very different, right? But they share lots of similar features, although they're very, very different in quality, right? On many, many levels, right? Global conspiracy theories, that's a whole different story, okay? Now, why are global conspiracy theories, right, so prevalent today? Okay, why at this moment in time is there this enormous, conspiracy theories have been around for a long time, global conspiracy theories that are actually arguing for a view of the world. For example, what both of these most famous conspiracy theories in America, at least, share, right, and in Great Britain, is that there's a global elite, that elite is pulling the strings, right, some version, right, of an Illuminati, right, they're moving the world. Let's say in the Icke's version, they're moving the world towards an AI-dominated reality. And there's this conspiracy, people conspiring, getting together for evil, which is how the dictionary defines conspiracy. Okay, did everyone get that? The way the dictionary defines conspiracy is people are getting together for evil purposes, for a nefarious purpose. So there's this conspiracy behind the scenes which is this global elite, right? And they're actually heightening the death toll in the pandemic, right, in order to, right, increase the obliteration of freedoms, right, in order to create the need for universal basic income, in order to make people dependent on the government, that will then make them more easily controlled by the larger AI, which will force them into, right, getting in, what are they called? They're getting biometric sensors under the skin, which will make them nanobots in a broader AI, effacing and destroying human freedom, right? And those are basic storylines that exist clearly in the major kind of global conspiracy theories. Now, why are those conspiracy theories happening? Why are they so powerful? And they're powerful for three reasons. Okay, and this is really important. Right? Maybe let's call it four reasons. Right? One is, and I want to be really clear about this, right? All their facts are wrong, but they get something right. In other words, what the conspiracy theories are saying that's right is the information ecology is broken. Now, I'm not going to review the talk we talked about 2 weeks ago about broken information ecologies, and I'm certainly not the only person talking about broken information ecologies, right? Sam Harris has talked about it, very intelligently, right? Jordan Hall has talked about it, very beautifully. Daniel Schmachtenberger, my dear friend, has talked about it very beautifully, right? Zach Stein and I are in a constant conversation about it, right? But we've approached it in a very particular way. We've actually understood it. They're talking about it, more from a technical, structural point of view. We've talked about it from a much deeper structural view, which is intimacy is information, right? Information is information. It's, right, which is the intimate structure of cosmos, right? When the human being, right, the free human being participates in bringing disparate parts into a larger whole, the human being is informing, creating new intimacies, and that's what information is. So therefore, the broken information ecology is a violation of the core sense of being in an intimate universe, and it's a violation of the intimacy that lives and breathes in me, right? It's a violation of the intimate universe that lives in me, right? When I'm misinformed, I'm deformed. That there's a violation of my essential interior. So that's part of the legitimate critique of conspiracy theories. What they're sensing is the information ecology is broken. They're sensing a violation, and they're mad at Shira Ovid in the tech column, who doesn't actually take on Mickey Willis. And let's take him on sincerely, and let's critique him sincerely, and let's show where he's wrong, which is legitimate. Instead, they call him a cesspool, right? And call him a fringe group of people, and call him discredited, and the doctor he brings on as discredited and garbage peddling showman, right? So there's a certain point in which the classical mainstream media, right, has gotten away with this kind of thing that Shira Ovid did, and that's not okay. That's not okay. There's a sense of no, you can't just dismiss people that way. You can't just label people as garbage peddling showmen and cover up the broken information ecology. That's a big deal. I had a very deep encounter with the New York Times, right? When the New York Times wrote an article about me, and at some point we'll write a chapter in some book about what happened there, but the process of corruption that I experienced directly firsthand, right, in dealing with the process of the New York Times and the set of lies that a New York Times reporter documented and recorded phone calls told me, lie after lie, was shocking, right? And hiding the fact of his ulterior agenda and who he was associated with and how he'd gotten enrolled by various forces, were a complete set of lies, which was actually a shocking experience, right? It was like, wow, right? So actually the reliance I share, and we all should share. Sam Harris has pointed out very beautifully, we all should share the outrage, right, that fuels, right, those of us who feel and consent into the broken information ecology. It's broken, and it's a violation of the deepest nature of an intimate universe. That's where conspiracy theories get something right. That's really important. You can't just dismiss them. And they get an enormous amount terribly wrong. And we've talked about in detail why, how they jump from partial truths to whole truths, how they jump into their own dogmatic fundamentalism, how they jump into projecting the devil on a group of people that they don't know and have never met and don't have information to support that with, right? So there's lots of huge breakdowns in conspiracy theories, right? That's absolutely true, but it's deeper than that. And we've talked about that in previous weeks in great depth, so I won't recapitulate it here. But it's deeper than that. And this is what we got to at the end of last week. It's much deeper. The reason a conspiracy theory is so powerful today is because we've lost touch with the gorgeous conspiring of reality itself. Reality is conspiring. And it's not by accident that the word conspiracy in the dictionary, to breathe together, is to breathe together for a negative cause. Because we've actually lost touch with the fact that reality is a great conspiring. It's a great conspiring. And if you want to inspire people, as Barack Obama did, right, in that commencement address, you inspire people by inviting them to participate in the great conspiring of reality, right? And the great conspiring of reality is the greatest story ever told. And maybe, Kirsten, if you have a second, right, Zohar, take a look. There's a set of 19 podcasts that Barbara Marx Hubbard and I made, which we called The Greatest Story Ever Told, which is on the Center for Integral Wisdom site. And it's actually the realization that reality is not a fact, it's a story. And it's going somewhere. Reality is driven by love. And it's driven, right, not by love as a social construction. The universe feels, and the universe feels love. Love is not hard to find, love is impossible to avoid. And wow. And yes, love needs to evolve. Of course it does. And love needs to evolve beyond only loving the in-group and in placing everyone else in the out-group, which was the ethnocentric expression of love. So we have to participate in the evolution of love, right? We have to be, it's not only that we had the ancient great religions, we have to create greater religions or greater world spiritualities or greater global communions, right, of pioneering souls, right? Or one church, which is many paths, but one mountain. And one mountain means there's a shared set of truths. And the shared set of truth is that we're all participating, right, in this greatest story ever told. And this greatest story ever told has two dimensions to it. One is there's value, there's intrinsic value in cosmos. Cosmos is not contrived value. It's not a social construction, right? Everything that Barack Obama said, right, in that speech, right, is actually deconstructed, right, by all of postmodernism, the entire academy in the United States, which is why the students at the private school I went to don't buy it, right? They're the best teachers in the world. They don't buy it because they say it's all made up. It's all a social construction. No, it's not a social construction. Yes, there's an evolving of values. Yes, we participate in the evolution of values. Yes, Barack Obama's right to call the next generation to its part in writing the next chapter in the story. But we're not ripping up the book. You're not writing the whole story yourself. Right, Barack, you're not just an old guy. You're an elder. Give us a transmission. Let's reclaim the good, the true, and the beautiful, right, as real ontologies in cosmos. Let's reclaim love, right, as, right, a real ontology in cosmos that's real. And it's not contrived, right? So that's a whole different story. So the Eros of reality means, number one, there's real meaning in cosmos. It's not contrived. It's not just merely subjective. No, it's that our subjectivity, the infinite subjectivity of the human being, meets the infinite. Human subjectivity participates in the subjectivity of cosmos. What does that mean? Subjectivity means interiority. Subjectivity means feeling, right? So human feeling participates in the larger feeling of cosmos. My feeling of love, right, participates in the universal love story. And my love story is chapter and verse in the universal love story. And I'm needed by all that is. Do you get that? I'm needed by all that is. And that experience I have of being alive when I'm needed is not just a evolutionary psychology leftover, right, which is transmitted to us by the most paper-thin writings of the most shallow forms of evolutionary psychology that seek to reduce all value to a social construction. Evolutionary psychology meets postmodernism. But actually, there are real values, and we are actually needed. And our interior, deepest sense of reality actually takes us to something that's important and true. We have to check it, right, with other people. We've got to get a shared sense, right? We've got to create a collective intelligence. What are the shared values that we share, right? What's the shared story that we participate in? What's the shared realization that you're actually an irreducibly unique expression of the field of love intelligence, right, who was intended by reality, right? That's what a 16-year-old needs to hear, not because it's a contrivance, because it's true. And anything less will leave their soul broken and empty and violated. right? Anything less is misinformation. Anything less is a deformation of the essential inner nature of the human being. No, you're not just a random aggregate, right, of molecules that could have been or could not have been, right, with no ultimate meaning. No, you participate in the meaning structure of cosmos. And your dignity is that you're a creator of meaning within the larger frame of meaning. And yes, next generation, you have a next chapter to write in the larger scroll of the book of life, in which every generation has contributed something meaningful and good and true. And yes, we're participating in the evolution of love, but it's the evolution of love, and we're not creating it, right? Love is real, right? Love is not hard to find, right? Love is impossible to avoid. Purpose is not hard to find. Purpose is impossible to avoid. And when I live a life without purpose, I feel denuded. And that's the second quality, right, of reality. Reality is filled with Eros. Eros has value, intrinsic value. It has content and meaning. And Eros has telos, it has direction. And so you as a young person, you have direction, and your direction matters, and your choices matter ultimately, not just because it's going to attract people into your orbit, and not because people are just going to gravitate you, so you're going to be more successful. And it's not just these values will last and work pragmatically, but they're participating in the value proposition of cosmos. We live in a cosmo-erotic universe. And Eros is the movement that brings together separate parts into wider wholes, into greater intimacies. And you as a human being, in which the intimate universe is alive, because all of reality, all quarks and all molecules and all atoms and all interior structures of meaning, right? And all organisms and all organelles, exterior and interior, live in you. And you've got to first receive it all. Do you get that? You got to first receive it all. You need to get a transmission of it all. We need to share with you. We've destroyed the canon. There is no more canon. The canon's just dead white males. No, the canon's not just dead white males. First off, dead white males are not bad per se. It's not bad to be white. And it's not bad to be male. It's not so bad to be dead because there's a continuity of consciousness. And of course, we need to augment the canon. We need to deepen the canon. We need to widen the canon. And we need to bring in the voices of the feminine. We need to reclaim indigenous wisdom. Of course we do. But there's a canon, right? There's a shared story, right? There's a shared global coherence. There's a shared global narrative. And the reason there's no coherence in responding to COVID, either within the United States or around the world, is because there's no shared narrative. There's no shared story. A shared story is a new configuration of intimacy. But when there's a global intimacy disorder, then coherence breaks down. And then 70,000 people die of COVID who didn't need to die of COVID. So they died struggling with their last breath, and they're still struggling today in New York, right? And in Italy, and in different places around the United States, and in Bangladesh. They're still struggling to breathe in this very second because we couldn't actually create a shared vision of value because we deconstructed all value and got stuck. And evolution stalled. Right? You get that? So that's where a conspiracy theory comes from. A conspiracy theory comes from when I don't actually participate in the knowing that reality is conspiring. And my very breath is part of that great conspiring of reality. Right? Then I lose my Eros. Then Eros breaks down. And Eros breaks down. Does everyone get that? When Eros breaks down, right, then there's this profound emptiness. And then pseudo-Eros steps in its wake. And pseudo-Eros can be every form of acting out an addiction, every form of breakdown, every form of, right, ethical destruction. That's one form of pseudo-Eros. But there's a second form of pseudo-Eros. And the second form of pseudo-Eros is if there's no shared story, which is authentic, and which actually is aligned and attuned to my interior sense of intimacy, and to my interior sense of goodness, truth, and beauty, well, I'm going to make up a story, right? That's what the brain does. When the brain meets reality and it has no pattern that can appropriately address reality, we know from neuroscience, right, the brain actually spins a false story. Wow, right? So at this moment of pandemic, which is a moment which is a plandemic, whether or not the particular facts were accurate or inaccurate, let's check the facts, right? But it is a plandemic. It's a plandemic which at its root is an infodemic. And the infodemic is rooted in a global intimacy disorder. And the global intimacy disorder causes a global action paralysis. Okay? So you can dismiss me, and you can say I'm too excited about this, and you can say you don't like my hair. And you can say you don't like the way I talk. Okay, so great, dismiss me. But hear what we're saying here. This is important, right? Conspiracies, right, emerge as a form of pseudo-eros when we lose touch with the greatest story ever told. Did you get that? That's wildly important. That's important beyond imagination, right? So we've got to reclaim Eros, right? Wow. Okay, it's like, wow. So it's now 12:08. We're going to hold here. We're going to hold here. We did a lot. We'll go to the next and final step next week. We'll try and put this all together. And we'll talk about, right, where exactly and why the conspiracies go wrong, and why the simple principles are wrong, and how we replace them with the better set of simple principles around everything. Better, not because they're dogmatically better, but because they're actually validated by reality. Okay? Now, I want to say something difficult and painful at the end, which I owe you in terms of integrity. And I'm sad to have to say this, right? But it's my integrity owing to you, okay? So I said about David Icke, wow, what a great guy, right? You know, he's really trying hard, right? And I'm sure David has lots of sincerity, and he's been at this for 30 years, but I got to take back the great guy. I'm sorry to do this, right? Because I've actually listened more extensively this week, not to anything that anyone said about David Icke, right? But to what he said himself. And David is talking about, and this is where conspiracy theories, this is where pseudo-eros goes wrong, right? You can't hold the emptiness. You put parts together, but you make huge leaps, and those leaps are not legitimate. So David Icke is talking about the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is a Russian forgery in the 19th century, which was used by Joseph Goebbels, right, time and again, who was the Nazi minister of propaganda, to justify concentration camps. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which talked about this elite group of Jews, right, who are actually running the world behind the scenes for the sake of world domination. And he talks about it not once, not twice, right? He speaks about Israel as a large concentration camp, right? Not once, not twice. It's part of his regular, right, pitch. That's not okay. That's not okay. Right? Do I believe David Icke when he says, I'm not an anti-Semite? I believe that's what he thinks. But you can't actually call Israel the only democracy in the Middle East, right? In which women vote, in which the Arabs and Jews work together at Hadassah Hospital gorgeously, right? Israel, which is threatened in its very existence. Now, is Israel always right? Of course not. Does Israel make mistakes? Of course it does. But Israel's a concentration camp, and you're going to support, right, divestment and boycott of Israel, and you're going to skip Egypt and Jordan and Syria, and you're going to say that the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is true, that there's a worldwide conspiracy of reality dominated by Jews, right, or Jews and other people, and it's not okay. It's not okay. This is where conspiracy theories go wrong, and it's my integrity with all of you, right? And I'm regretful to say this. It makes me immeasurably sad, and I want to invite you, David. This is an invitation. If I got this wrong, David, right? If I misunderstood you, you're invited. Let's do a dialogue. Let's talk about it. Right? Let's talk about how to take, the fierce integrity in what you're saying and split it off, right, from the terrible, 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 racist, horrific, right, anti-Semitism using virtually the same words used by Nazi propaganda ministers. Not okay. See, this is where conspiracy theories go wrong. Okay? So that's important. That's important. So notice what we're doing here. Conspiracy theories are responding to an emptiness, right? They're a form of pseudo-eros. Their original motivation is based on the de-eroticization of the world, the loss of the eros of the great story, of the great conspiring. When we don't participate in the great conspiring, the only thing left, right, is the conspiracy theory. But then the conspiracy theory goes wrong because it's not rooted. It becomes its own form of dogma, its own form of fundamentalism, right? And it goes south very quickly. So we've got to go out of conspiracy theory and into a great conspiring, right? We got to invite David to the table. And, David, let go of that stuff, right? Disavow it. And then take your seat at the table as a powerful agent for change, right? Wow, right? Huge respect for your work, right? Like, it's a big deal. So, wow. So welcome, everyone. And I just want to say, I have such huge respect for President Obama, and I thank him for, allowing, and I'm sure he'd be excited, right, to hear the challenge. And I invite President Obama, right, who's obviously a very, very different kind of figure, right? He's been a mainstream figure and he's given his life to public service, right, in his way. I invite him to have a conversation about first principles. Let's reclaim first principles. Let's go deeper than a kind of shallow, insipid liberalism, right? You were right, Mr. President. The truth does live in us. We got to show that that's true. We got to ground that in interior sciences. We got to ground that, right, in a shared story. Right? Don't just be the old guy, right? Be an elder, right? Inspire us with the great conspiring of reality. Let's read wider and let's go deeper, right? Oh my God. Wow. Right. So thank you, everyone. Right. Big, huge yes. Big, big, huge, wild, right? Insane yes. And I just want to also just thank everyone, right? Oh my God. I just can't believe that, right? I mean, so many people, almost everybody stayed with us. So thank you. That was like so gorgeous of you and so beautiful of you and so appreciated. We are revolutionaries together. We are doing the subversive act of claiming hope together. And hope is a memory of the future. Hope is a memory of the future. It's the shared story that we can all live in, we can all be in. So wild love, wild, outrageous love, deepest bow to you. And it's my deepest privilege to have the honor of having these conversations with you.